me under, take me under your wing, crack of thunder, as the wild birds sing. You can hear hunger crying out, a sonic echo that leaves no room for doubt. All the shots bring it back to what it's not. Make a move, do we do? As the world cries tears in our hands, are we all part of a bigger plan? All the shots bring it back to what it's not. Deepest oceans, they can't portray enough empty spaces, time to rust and dust. There's no wonder left for us to love. No warmth or shelter, just satellites above. All the shots bring it back to what it's not. Make a move, do we do? As the world cries tears in our hands, are we all part of a bigger plan? All the shots bring it back to what it's not.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new journey at World Sim Racing, as tonight it's the curtain raiser for the World Sportscar Championship here from Sebring. After 6 years of GT and touring car racing, it's time for World Sim Racing to get into a multi-class championship for 2023. The all-new LMP3 in our racing will make up the prototype category, and over the course of 6 90-minute races this season, they'll be lapping a field of GT4 cars from 5 different manufacturers. Welcome to RaceSpotTV everyone, my name is Ewan O'Leary. I'm alongside Connery Maddock for the opening round here at Sebring, where they'll have to respect the bumps as always, Connery, but the multi-class aspect of this championship is what's really got people talking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, of course, a new initiative here from World Sim Racing, going into a new discipline. Like you said, we're already familiar with the GT Championship. We're already familiar with the touring cars that we have on Thursday nights as well. But we're going to get some multi-class action here at Sebring. You can see the calendar up on the screen for you right now. Many circuits to look forward to over the course of this season. And as always, Ewan, in both of the other World Sim Racing Championships, we have this Pro and Am situation to deal with as well.
We certainly do. That means 4 categories, I suppose, but 2 classes. We'll explain what that means a little bit later on, because it might get a bit complicated. Le Mans coming up in a few weeks' time, of course. That's going to be a great one to go to for multi-class action, of course. Watkins Glen, a little bit more of a confined space for a little bit later on, which could be a little bit different. Then we've got Monza, Spa and Daytona to end off the season a little bit later. It's a nice calendar, not a long season, kind of all of that, that's going to keep things very close. It's going to keep the championship very interesting, and hopefully we get 4 interesting title fights throughout those 6 rounds.
And having a short season, that means there's not a lot of room for error. So you really need to be straight out of the blocks here at this first round at Sebring. You've got to show all your cards, basically. Otherwise, if you're having to try and play catch-up towards the end of the season, well, it's going to be very, very difficult to do so with the season being as short as it is. But we are heading towards the end of qualifying here. It's an open qualifying session. You're wondering, oh, why are there no prototypes out on circuit? Well, they have already completed their qualifying. We're just seeing the end of the GT4 session here at the moment.
We are, they go after the LMP3s. 15 minutes each, by the way, totaling a whole 30-minute session, and the checker flag is now waving on those GT4s as we speak, so we'll bring that starting grid up to you when we finally complete the session. But you do wonder a little bit how important qualifying... Oh dear, that was a bit messy on the final qualifying lap here. You do wonder how important it's going to be with a 90-minute race coming up. 2 mandatory pit stops throughout as well. There's a lot of time for things to change over the course of the race, but you will want to qualify well, as Johnny Slater is attempting to do, and unfortunately won't. Well, he's done 3rd at least from GT4 Pro, but into the wall out the final chicane, and that means that the order will stay largely the same in the final moments here. Guy Edwards here for RD Sims, but also makes his way towards the line in the BMW, looking to jump up from 10th place where he is currently, and I don't think he's going to improve any further from there. It's not a bad time, a 2:09.7, but it's also no better than his previous best with a 2:09.6, so he stays where he is. And Aston Martin have Lydia Johansson making their way down towards the final corner right now as well. Lots of different manufacturers here, Conor, which I think is the positive thing. We often get a complete whitewash of manufacturers in GT4 championships sometimes, but not here.
Yeah, McLaren tops the GT4 order at the moment, followed by Mercedes, followed by a Porsche, and then the Astons are sticking it in there as well. So good representation across the board when it comes to the manufacturers. Of course, when it comes to LMP3, we've only got one, so we can't really have much representation there. But it's good to see the balance of performance being the way it is here for GT4s. Johansson is going to be able to get himself 12th in class here for the moment. It's important to note, however, that even though they've been separated out into GT4 Pro and GT4 Am, they are all going for the same points at the end of the day. It's the points are separated based off of car class, not on subclass, so to speak.
No, and that's why points go down to 30. You get points for 30th place. That realistically means everyone's going to score points as long as you finish 50% of the race. That's what you need to accomplish in terms of laps. And so that will be the sticking point for points. As you will see, though, it's a very, very close GT4 qualifying session, especially between those top two drivers. It's both Pure Sims Esports on the front, Andy Shield followed by Eric Grove. Only 1,000th of a second between them. That's exactly what you want from your teammates, running exactly on the same pace. They're 1 and 2. There's going to be a Pure Sims lockout of this GT4 front row, and it will all be getting underway very, very shortly. 90 minutes of racing here at Sebring in the opening round of the World Sportscar Championship. And let's bring up that starting grid to you in a couple of moments' time to show you who is where after that opening qualifying session. In LMP3, it's Nathan Moore who's on the pole by a couple of attempts ahead of Piers Pryor, with Jürgen Frank, the veteran Sim RC driver, alongside Thomas King in row 2. Mathieu Gutier-Taunton is on the 5th position ahead of Corentin Grines in 6th, another of those Sim RC drivers, followed by one of his teammates, Nicholas Hyder. Then Daniel Sedsley in 8th, and Ben Bishop and Dennis Robin Wolf round out the top 10. Ethan Critchley and John Williams will share row 6 with Stuart Bickley, Christoph Waits and Gergely Kunsabazo rounding out the LMP3 Pro drivers. Then it's the AMS with Ben Gregory and Mac Mafarqua. Silas Craig Vollerick is in the 3rd place ahead of Toby Ward. Then there's Just Burmeister and Bruno Melo rounding out the 3rd row. 4th row will be Baron Glover and Tony Draper, with Anton Oman and Andy Boo rounding up the top. And Olympus Esports have pure Paul Joseph Kliss there in 11th ahead of John Roberts in 12th. Then in 13th place, it's Andy Jones to round out the LMP3 AM standings. He didn't qualify, by the way, off of the back there. Andy Shield and Eric Grove will be getting underway from the front row for Pure Sims Esports, with Johnny Slater and Jack Osborne on row 2. Jonathan Walker and Richard Simnor will be on row 3. Rafael Dragasas will be on the 7th place for Semper Racing. Then it's his teammate Jaroslav Sebula in 8th. Then there is Michael Havlinson Hausler in 9th ahead of Guy Edwards. Matthew Crisp and Christopher Smith round out row 6, with Paddy Faulkner and Paul Zanettacci in the final position. Then there's Josh Boot and Howard Hassan to round out the final of those orders starting grids, or at least the front row at least. GT4 AM, this is Lee Berridge and then Jack Wilkins the next row, with Paul Smith, RaceSpot's very own, in 5th place. Evangelos Navatas in the 6th place out of Andy Gilmore and Adam Locke. Gary McFarlane and Philip Bjork are rounding out the top 10, with Matty Wild and Havlidi Johansson just missing out. Finishing up in 11th and 12th on the starting grid for them. So that's our quite mammoth grid to start off our World Sports Car Championship journey over the course of 2023. There are your track conditions. It matches up with UK time almost just past 7 p.m. here at Sebring. And with the time of year that this is, I know that it is spring in Sim, but not the height of summer by any means. By 9 p.m, 9:30 p.m. kind of time, we'll be ending off this race, Connery. It may start to get not dark, but a little bit less clear in the vision.
Yep, those conditions, or at least in terms of the lighting, slowly deteriorating over the course of the time that we have to run here today as these guys get themselves all set up for their formation lap. Of course, with your run through the grid there, we went through each and every class in terms of Pro and Am, but of course, with the way things are here in iRacing, all those Pro-Ams in each class are going to be mixing together. So we've got the prototypes, their Pro and Ams will be mixed in together, so we're not separating the grid based off of the Pro/Am. It's just split off on the car classes here. That's an important thing to note because that grid rundown, you may not, you may see someone in pole position for an Am class, for example, but they're a bit down the field when it comes to reality once the green flag drops here. So that's something to be a note, but I'm super excited to get this one started here. Of course, with this full pace lap, there are 2 mandatory stops here. That's an important thing to note here. 2 mandatory stops over the course of this 90-minute event. So there's going to be a lot of strategic thinking coming around here because those pit windows may be relatively wide.
They may be, although, having spoken to Corita Guinez earlier on today, he was actually suggesting that they're actually not very wide at all. There's maybe a bit of a chance for a slightly shorter stop in terms of fuel, but because there's a 60% limit on the fuel in each class, 60% in LMP3, 50% in GT4, which is another story, but that 60% in LMP3 means that the pit stop window might actually not be that wide, and the real strategic call he was thinking about is with tyres. I mean, what do you do here? Do you take a couple on one of the stops, or 4 on another, or do you take 4 both times? Now, that's the real thing, or one of the many things they're going to have to think about over an hour and a half tonight.
And that choice is going to be what makes and breaks your race, potentially, especially given that people haven't been able to get too familiar with these LMP3 machines. They are still very, very new cars to the service here, so all the tips and tricks haven't really been established. So it's going to be a big learning experience for everyone involved in that class in particular.
It will, and as we've seen over the course of this iRacing season, the 3rd of 2023, the LMP3 is not exactly the easiest one to drive, and this series, in officials at least, with LMP3s and GT4s, has seen its fair share of chaos in iRacing over the course of this season. So how will it do tonight? How will we get off the line? It's a big wide opening towards turn 1, of course, but things are going to start to feel very claustrophobic by the time we get down to turn 3. It's a new journey in the World Sportscar Championship as round 1 here at Sebring looks to get underway here for our season opener. Running towards turn 1 for the very first time.
They all really did fan out there across the start-finish line. A bit of confusion with regards to the starts in that LMP3 class, but it looks like most drivers have gotten through there relatively unscathed. We're still waiting for that GT4 start. Here they are, coming up towards the start-finish line now. That front row lockout for Pure Sim is going to work out quite well as both of them maintain P1 and P2 on the entry down in towards turn number 1 for the GT4 class as they all file their way through turn number 1 for the first time. Got to be careful on exit here because that exit curb and that dirt and that grass on the outside does come up on you rather quickly.
It does. It's a Pure Sims Esports lockout from the very front, and it looks like they've held on to that for the most part in GT4. It's been a clean start from everyone, though. A little bit of contact down there, and LMP3 just saw in towards turn 10, but only side to side. Nothing too bad by the looks of it. To start off this race, and for the most part everybody has gotten through quite cleanly, which is exactly what you want to see. The leaders then make their way up towards Le Mans for the first time as there's dives down the inside on the way into that chicane. I think Jürgen Frank trying to get involved as well for Sim RC. You can see in that 4th position, excuse me, this is a little bit further back in the pack as some of the Sim RC drivers try to make their way through the order. It has at least been a decent start for the pole sitters. The battling is behind here for second place as there's weaving on the Ormond Straight as they make their way into Sunset Bend for the first time.
Fantastic stuff in this very, very early stage of the race as we see these guys head their way through out of Sunset Bend on towards the second lap of the race here. Jürgen Frank trying to defend here from Ethan Critchley as Critchley looks to try and go the long way around here at turn number 1. It is sometimes possible, but maybe not so much in these cars as he has to fall back in behind for now. What I do want to have another look at potentially once all of this is calmed down is another look at that prototype start, because it did seem like a bit of a mess. No one ultimately had a bunch of damage or lost a lot of positions as a result of it, but there was a lot of confusion on the start. I think there may be some people who might be a bit guilty of jump starting further back through the field.
Possibly. It's always a thing to try and anticipate the start from further back, but you've got to be very careful with that, of course. Not least with regards to the rules, but also incidents as well. Let's take another look at that. Well, it was already going on out of Sunset Bend, wasn't it? And you're absolutely right. There was all sorts going on here. Well, I don't want to describe how many wide that was, but it's got to be 5 or 6 at some point. And then everybody got themselves in towards turn 1. Nathan Moore at least held on to his lead throughout all of that, which is about the only thing that stayed the same, because behind it was complete chaos.
It absolutely was. So that's an interesting point. Of course, you know, drivers may not be used to a race start in this car. It's the first season that we've ever had and the first race. So I think I can forgive it at least somewhat in that instance. But we'll see what comes of it. Race has settled into a very decent rhythm here at the moment. The prototypes have really filed themselves out single file, but look at the advantage that Nathan Moore has been able to gain here off the first 2 laps. He's up to almost 1.8, nearing on 2 seconds as they head their way towards the end of lap number 2. That is a great pace to be setting.
It is. A nice lead at the end of the opening couple of laps. It's Nathan Moore, followed by Pierce Pry, Jürgen Frank and Ethan Critchley, a top 4, and then an almighty battle for 5th place going on right now. I think a couple of drivers actually ending up in the wall, or at least very near to that, on the way in towards Sunset. John Williams taking turn 1 a bit gingerly, and I think that's Nicholas Hyder on the outside trying to make up a place. Down the outside now in towards turn 3. It's right round the outside for the SimRC driver, and John Williams is pushed down into 7th place. Not sure who or whether anyone grabbed the wall actually out the final turn, but John Williams was very ginger in towards turn 1, and I'm not entirely sure why.
I believe that was Krenin Guinness in the SimRC car. You usually get these cars confused, so I'll forgive it. But there we go, down in towards the hairpin they go. A little bit of a puff of tyre smoke there from Guinness on the front right. You do have to be a bit careful with regards to that, but I'm sure with the driver with his amount of experience that he knows exactly what he's doing here in these types of races. But for Williams, he's just going to settle in behind here and continue on the decent run. He started P13 in class, so that's ignoring Pro and Am here at the moment, and he's up to what's now 7th, so it's still a great start for that number 2.
It is. Nicholas Hyder, you are right, of course. Nicholas Hyder is miles away at the moment. This is GT4, and this was further on the back. A bit of a mix-up there in towards, or out of the first turn, I should say. Up on the grass on the left-hand side there, and then 2 cars ending up on the wall. We are, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that Paul Smith was involved there, which is a real shame. RaceSpotTV's own driving here in the World Sports Car Championship this season. Hopefully all of the rounds, and unfortunately not getting off to a great start. It's always a bit of a funneling effect though, isn't it, on the way out of turn 1. It's a really wide entry, but as you get down towards turn 3, it all of a sudden feels very, very different indeed, and that's what the GT4s were feeling the effects of a little bit in the mid-pack there.
Yeah, it's always tricky to negotiate when you're going side by side. It all closes up because it's a big, wide, inviting entry to the corner, which we're seeing Ben Bishop negotiate here at the moment. But look at how much it tightens up for the exit. Look how precise you need to be on that exit curb. And, well, in that case, 2 cars can't occupy the same space there. If they do, they have to really have their heads on a swivel and actually back out of things quite a lot to make that win between the 2 of them.
On board with Ben Bishop here in the GTA pink car, and no doubting why that team name was come up with this livery. Absolutely fantastic. Ben Bishop looking to break inside the top 10 here in LMP3 Pro, as there's a couple of lockups in front. Might fancy his chances in a couple of moments' time, because there's a side-by-side battle going on up in front of him now. This will be for the inside positions inside the top 10 for LMP3. Down the inside towards turn 10, early on the brakes there from the 76, which should resolve that predicament fairly quickly, and just about does on the way through there, although the battle's not quite over yet. Into Tower Corner, back down the inside and back through all over again, and then there's going to be another switchback. Well, I personally didn't think LMP3s would be possible at that kind of racing at that section of Sebring, but they certainly are. These cars are not too big for the track that they're on by any means, and they're providing great racing now in towards the final couple of corners. This is the Le Mans chicane, of course, before that's Ullman Straight and Sunset Bend as well. Cut back after switchback and mistake as well. This is a fantastic battle to open this race.
It is, and it allows Wolf to get another little run here in towards Sunset Bend. Does Sedgley decide to go on the defensive? He doesn't. Remains on the outside, remains on the normal racing line as Wolf sticks it down. And as he carried too much speed, though, a bit of a lock-up on the driver's right-hand side, but somehow he's able to hold on with it and not have an almighty instant with Sedgley on the outside. But Sedgley's going to come back at him now, coming across the start-finish line. This is brilliant racing between the two of them.
Whoa, wow. Big dive to the outside, and Dennis Robin Wolf is going to fancy his chances of going through the middle here as well. Oh my word, that was close. More weaving on the way down towards turn 3. Outside line again for the 76. It's not going to happen. Up on the curb, Dennis Robin Wolf looks to the inside at turn 5. That's not going to happen either. They are costing themselves time, but what entertainment this is. From left to right, switching, sweeping from side to side, looking for a way through. Remarkably, they've not changed positions on this lap, at least this new one. Dennis Robin Wolf now goes from attack to defence as he's put under pressure from one of the Sim RC cars in the form of the number 17 a little bit further back. He's looking to get a run on the way towards turn 10.
Christoph Weitz does angle his way in towards that tight right hand. Can Weitz complete the move down the inside? Yes, he can. And there's no opportunity for a switchback this time around from Bishop. And now we've got also Ben Gregory on the back of this, on the outside looking in as well. It just goes to show how an extended side-by-side battle can really bunch up these guys.
By the way, Ben Gregory is the LMP3 AM leader, as you can see on the left-hand side, but it's not a big gap to Vrolik just behind in the number 28. Another thing to note is that Ethan Critchley has lost a top 4 place. He's just dropped off timings on the left-hand side. He's been overtaken there by Thomas King. Well, he's been re-overtaken now, so it seems there's quite a battle going on for 4th in the LMP3s overall. And there they go, already in traffic, only 10 minutes into the season, and the season's defining factor is beginning to show. Side by side in towards turn 1, possibly as a result of the little bit of traffic there for GT4. King will hold on again. Critchley now finally demoted to 5th place with a little bit more certainty this time.
Well, he's got Guinness all over his rear end as well, so I don't think he can have a little bit of a rest just yet. Plus, they've got the traffic to deal with ahead. Matty Wild, they'll just about negotiate him on driver's left-hand side as they head through there. And on the way through Big Bend, and then on the way down towards the turn 7 hairpin, and they're going to catch the traffic in the right place. It's a bit sketchy, but King makes it work down the inside there. Bjork parking it on the outside, just letting those prototypes go.
Maybe a bit too much even. I think a bit of an outbreaking moment in towards turn 7 there as they make their way into turn 10 now. Another GT4 dispatched with, and this is the most dangerous part in the race. We say it all the time in endurance racing, but it's true in sprint racing as well. And you could argue even more true, because in endurance racing you've got that eye for patience maybe sometimes, but there won't be much of it here. Only 90 minutes worth of a race. Everyone will want to get through absolutely right now, and there's a lot of cars to deal with.
Yeah, and we just see the GT4 hung out to dry. That's Gary McFarland there in the number 67, just getting absolutely freight trained by the prototypes coming through. There is quite a big speed delta here between the GT4s and the LMP3s. In terms of qualifying time, the fastest qualifiers in the in LMP3 were in the low 153s. The fastest GT4s were in the 209s. So that is a wide rift in terms of the difference between the two classes, and you can see how it affects things as Guinness gets all caught up behind Johnny Slater.
Wow, that was close and very nearly on the exit as well. Guinness was avoiding a potential incident between King and that Mercedes there as he dived down the inside. That wasn't ideal, particularly. He'll rip round the outside again. goodness me, you have to be brave around there to manage that one. Corrington Guinez, we're used to seeing him in, well, all kinds of cars, really. He's a bit of a Swiss Army knife, if you like, for the Sim RC team, applying his trade to the LMP3 at the moment. But the downforce they have comparatively with the GT4s is quite frightening on occasion.
And you can see the leaders still dealing with massive amounts of GT4 traffic. They caught a couple of stragglers at the back of the field, but now they're in and amongst the main contingent, and this is where the competent endurance drivers will really come to the forefront here. Those that are used to this sort of traffic will really start to thrive here and be able to sieve their way through more effectively than perhaps some of the others that are not quite used to it. It's really a different skill set that you need to deal with this situation, both in the faster and in the slower class.
And you get the feeling that the Pure Sims esports drivers will be able to deal with that. We've seen Eric Grove a lot in other competition where time is a little bit... well, the races go on for longer, put simply. Especially in GT4 machinery. He's done a lot of driving for Pure Sims in this class. He's currently got his teammate Andy Shield right behind us. There's been a bit of an incident in GT4 AM by the looks of it. I think Hassan and Berridge have been together, looking... by that graphic on the left hand side, but let's see anyway, because it's all going on at the moment. You can just see from the right hand side of that shot, it's absolute carnage back there for not only, as you say, the LMP3s, but also the GT4s as well. For everybody to just negotiate this is very, very tricky, but there's a feeling in an endurance race that once you pass this first phase, it gets easier from there. I don't know if that's going to be the case in such a sprint race format where it's going to be busy for such a long period of time, for most of this race, in fact.
It really is. Not that much opportunity to really get yourself a break here as we continue with the onboard here. This is with the number 81 car of Halfordson Hausler here, as he's got a bit of a situation brewing ahead of him. The lapping procedure getting a little bit close quarters, shall we say, a little bit further down the road there with those prototypes trying to get their way through. Of course, you don't want to necessarily make it too easy if you're one of these GT4 cars, because you have your own race to think about, and when everyone's still within, the same couple of seconds, any bit of lost time is going to be significant.
Oh, that was close for Hausler as he tried to brake later than Richard Sindler just up in front, couldn't quite. And now we've got all kinds of things going on, because just up in front, it's Jonathan Walker who's just slowed down in the Mercedes there, and that's really stacked up at these three. Hausler looking to the outside now. He might not have a choice of where to go because the Porsche pulls in front of him, but he ducks to the inside rather smartly, in fact very smartly, because he's taken 2 for the price of 1 at turn 10. That was great presence of mind, great almost prediction skills from Hausler, and reading the race to absolute perfection.
Yeah, great stuff indeed. That's the sort of heads-up driving that you really like to see towards the front of these fields. Hausler, of course, currently still 6th place there in GT Pro, but continuing on very, very well indeed. In terms of elsewhere, during that entire sequence, actually, Tony Draper did get pushed off the circuit somewhat, did very well to try and avoid the barriers there, although he lost a bit of time on the order of about 3 or 4 seconds in all of that here at the moment. But you see this amount of traffic heading their way down the back straight towards Sunset Bend, which can be very, very sketchy, especially in a multi-class environment. You've got to be very, very careful indeed, and well, looks like everyone's just about got themselves through there okay, but it is quite sketchy coming through there with GTs and prototypes interacting, because the GTs are much more sort of on the limit of their grip coming through there than the prototypes are. They can't really change a direction once they've picked a trajectory on entry.
Yeah, that is going to be something that we say again, because it's going to have caused an incident, I would imagine, over the course of the race throughout one of these corners. We say it so often, but it's an interaction that goes wrong fairly often, unfortunately. And just look at how busy it is. You can see exactly why this racing is, first of all, so popular, but also so busy and so incident prone because of the amount of drivers in one place at one time. Jonathan Walker still in 5th place, by the way. Hausler was able to get through on 2 in 1 at turn 10, of course, but Walker at least held on to 5th place, and he's trying to defend up there as we go back to the leaders in LMP3. Briefly, here's the battle with Jonathan Walker in the blue and fluorescent yellow. You can see it's side by side behind with one of the LMP3s as well, and having a terrible time right now is Richard Simnor. He's not only found himself stuck behind Walker, but he's seen Hausler go through, maybe now another driver going through as well in the form of one of the Aston Martins. I think that's Jaroslav Sebula in the Semper Racing 811. It is indeed just in behind. Simner will not be enjoying this right now, being stuck behind Walker for quite so long.
Yeah, there was a tiny bit of contact between Sebula and Simner while that situation was going on. It did push the Semper Racing car out just that little bit wide, but thankfully Sebula was able to gather it up in time before it all went too wrong as he pushes wide yet again, and there was a car off the circuit, car stationary on the circuit as well there. That's Andy Scheel.
It is second placed Andy Scheel from the Pure Sims Esports McLaren team has gone into the wall at Le Mans, and with how far down the wall he is, you would suggest there was help, and there was. One of the Sim RC drivers getting involved there. It was on the outside, on the exit of Le Mans. He's looking for a way through. Oh, no. It was the prototype stuck behind the GT4 looking for an avenue, and there just wasn't one.
Yeah, let's have another look at it. Oh, it looks bad, but I can explain it. John Roberts was expecting, I don't know, maybe it's just a misjudgment, because I don't think there was any history between Roberts and Hyder, who was the driver trying to come through. Hyder can do nothing about this, by the way. He was just trying to get through on the prototype, but then eventually through on the GT4. But unfortunately, Roberts has just mistimed himself stepping out. He was intending to go behind the other prototype, but instead just completely quarter-paneled him and took the GT4 out in the process.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Not Hyder's fault and not the GT4's fault either. I'm going to pin that one entirely on the LMP3 stuck in behind, unfortunately, there. Yeah, I think you've got to be patient in that respect. It's a classic passing move, isn't it, when you're an LMP3? If you're side by side with someone and there's a slower driver coming up in terms of multi-class racing, then you can kind of block them behind the slower car, and it really helps you, but you can't just turn your way out of it in that respect by bulldozing your way through, unfortunately. That's what happened there on the Ulman Straight. And unfortunately, it's taken out the second place GT4 Pro driver. Eric Grove now left on his own out there in the lead for Pure Sims Esports, and he's enjoying that 5-second lead, very much ahead of Osborne in the second position. That's Jack Osborne for Atom Racing. There they are on the bottom end of your screen. 5 seconds the gap. Then Hausler, who's now onto a provisional podium place. And this battle, which has been promoted to the one for 4th place. Walker and Simnor still can't leave each other alone.
Yep, still stuck together like glue, shall we say. But not disrupted this time by much of the LMP3 traffic. Of course, there are a couple of smatterings of cars that have yet to head their way through the stragglers there in the LMP3 field, but it seems like the vast majority of prototypes have headed their way through right now as Simner ducks underneath Walker, breaks traction though, and allows Walker right back through, and here come more prototypes in an active battle as well. It's all kicking off now.
Well, Sebula is now on the outside as well here for the in the Aston Martin 811. They're side by side, and he's, well, going to be squeezed right to the limit on the way out of turn 1. Outside line in towards turns 2 and 3 as well. This is going to be close. They're absolutely door to door through 3 and 4. Great racing again. Just the right amount of space given there by Simnor, and he holds on to his place with some stern defending.
Great, making that car as wide as possible, that's for sure. And now he's going to have a bit of an advantage on the way down towards the hairpin, so there's really no response possible from the 811 in from behind. So that was very, very well worked there from Simner, from Walker to get himself ahead as well in that entire situation. We've had a couple of drivers drop down a little bit from where I remember them. Seems like Christoph Weitz has had an issue. He's currently 16.5 seconds behind his normal lap, and this is why.
Oh, what a mess this is. Well, that's a chain of events, a very unfortunate chain of events down there at the bottom end of LMP3. Well, that's somewhat unexplainable. Matthew Goodyear Taunton was the driver we were following on there rear-ended someone who'd gone off in front, and then there were body parts everywhere, and another couple of or 2 or 3 drivers got involved as well. It was all a bit of a mess, to be honest with you, down at turn 7, which is very unfortunate. I think, by the way, this is the battle for the lead in LMP3 AM, as Vrolik tries to make his way through on Bishop in the front of this field. It's certainly for 10th place in the overall LMP3 standings, and there's down the inside. That might have actually been a lap car just up in front, but oh no, it wasn't. It was for 10th place. Bishop has indeed been displaced on that one, but Ben Bishop is a pro car, so Vrolik is not battling for a class position there, but it will matter for points, as we explained earlier, Connery. LMP3 points go down to 30 because it counts for everybody in one, so the best play, the AM winner, won't necessarily get the full 40 points, for example.
Sorry, Ewan, I have to interrupt here because Ben Gregory, previous leader in the AM class, had come down on towards the pit lane for a scheduled stop, I think, one of the early stoppers, but unfortunately on just a few corners after pit exit, he's tagged the barrier, and actually I think he's taken the tow back to pit lane. So that was your AM leader in the early stages, Ben Gregory. This.
Well spotted. It was a mistake in towards turn 3, and that's going to do some damage. He looks like he's got suspension damage, knows it immediately, goes back to pit lane. So Bishop was not in the lead, indeed. It was Ben Gregory who was in the lead there, but unfortunately no longer. And we are at that stage now where we may start to see different strategies appearing, because we're nearly 25 minutes into this one already. You have to make 2 stops in the race, both because it's mandatory and also because of the fuel limit anyway. It will force you to do that. And unfortunately, the early stop hasn't paid off on that occasion. Not sure whether the early stop would have been the best choice anyway, but unfortunately, we'll never really know with Ben Gregory.
There were a couple of others that did come down with him. Mathieu in the number 20 car came down in basically at the same time as well. Christoph Weitz is in, but of course he had a bit of damage that needed repairing in that instance as well. So we've had a couple of stops already, but of course the vast majority deciding to keep with it and keep going out there at the moment, especially in that LMP3 class. We'll have to see how the strategies turn out, because I think Ben Gregory, is kind of a moot point now because he's in our retirement, but he did take tyres on that stop, at least some form of tyres.
He did. That's the mystery in LMP3, really. How many are you going to take at once and at what times? And are you going to take them at all? How are you all 4? Is it going to be? Well, that's all to figure out over the course of the evening. So, Nathan Moore still leads, by the way. 1.7 seconds his advantage. I haven't seen him for ages, but he is still up there. He is still leading the way, and there he is on your screen, completing another lap with 25 minutes now complete in this race. Piers Prime is in the 2nd position in the 22, and then there's Jürgen Frank in the 3rd place. It's Vrolik who is indeed leading in LMP3 AM, followed by Tony Draper, who's in the 2nd position. Eric Grove still leads in GT4 Pro with Jack Wilkins leading for Wild Things Racing in GT4 AM. There is Eric Grove looking at, there's Sebula. No, that is Eric Grove indeed, in the Aston Martin, who's leading the way. He's looking pretty lonely out there, but I think he'll be enjoying that. He's away from the chaos as things stand, and unfortunately he's not got his teammate with him anymore, but he won't mind that too much. At least he's out front on his own.
Yeah, it's a comfortable position to be in. I thought Nathan Moore's gap at the front of prototypes was getting to be significant. I didn't quite realise that Grove was so far ahead of everyone else, on the order of about 5 seconds ahead of Jack Osborne there in 2nd place in GT4 Pro. So things going very, very well indeed if you're a fan of Pure Sims. Let's just say that. Yes. But well, we can't speak so soon. We're still in the relatively early stages of this race. Still over an hour before we get this thing done, and still 2 stops for each class yet to go. So things can definitely change in and amongst those top couple of positions.
We've got a bit more unpicking to do here, Connery, because Ben Gregory has just informed us that he didn't make an early stop by choice, actually, but he was involved with that crash at the hairpin that we saw. Didn't fully realise that at the time, but he was involved, gave him a meatball, so he had to come down and rectify that, and on his way back out again, had a second incident, so he's very frustrated, as you might understand at the moment. But unfortunately, that's how his race came to an end in what, let's be honest, was a pretty clumsy incident, really, at the final chicane. Don't know who started it all, but for 4 drivers to get involved in that single car spin was somewhat bizarre to see and a little bit clumsy on a few parts.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I only saw the 3 cars involved, and yeah, I didn't realise that Ben also got a piece of it as well. But yeah, I think clumsy is probably the best word for it. Of course, we do have race stewards in this series, but they look at things after the race rather than during, so we'll see if any penalties get applied. I hazard a guess they will be, especially in that particular case. But you know, penalty points and some such, it really does. You know, it's really no respite when you get a retirement from the race because of that incident.
A real shame as we go to the scene of that accident at the hairpin. Mostly GT4s in this particular section, although we follow one of the LMP3s. Pass for second place in GT4 AM as Josh Boot now makes his way past Jack Wilkins, I think it was, who was in that position previously. Don't know where that happened, in fact, but he has made his way into second. It's giving, Wilkins is leading, isn't he? So it can't be him. He's got quite a big lead at the moment, so we'll see. But Boot makes his way up to second at least, and we'll hang on to that for the moment in GT4 AM. There's a lot of classes here to try and work through and to try and focus on, which is proving to be a little bit difficult as the sun sets at Sebring. 1 hour to go here in the opening round of the World Sportscar Championship for Season 1. We go back to the leaders. Nathan Moore with a second and a half over these two. Piers Pryor and Jürgen Frank fighting for second place into the aptly named Sunset Bend for this time of day.
Yeah, and that gap for the race leaders come down by quite a bit. It was hovering around about 1.92 seconds, but now it's down to 1.3. So I imagine that might have been traffic related there for Nathan Moore to bring him back into the clutches of Pryor and Frank, but I don't have enough evidence to try and confirm that. But it's good to see from a viewer's perspective, though, the front couple of cars bunching up here.
It is fantastic news for us, and indeed dips below a second now. Was there a little bit of traffic there for Nathan Moore, or was it just not quite as good of a run through that opening sector as he maybe would have liked? Not entirely sure, to be honest, but he is getting closed in on by Piers Pryor, who, by the way, has turned his hand to broadcasting a little bit in the real world, so he's technically one of us. We'll claim him, although he is a very good race car driver as well in his own right, so we've got to give him credit on both parts, I think. He's currently the meat in this sandwich. Jürgen Frank watching on from further back, but we have reached that half an hour point now. 60% fuel limit on these LMP3s means that they won't realistically be able to go that much longer than this point now.
Yeah, it seems to be that we are getting towards the end of that of this first stint here for LMP3s, so watch for them to come dipping down on towards the pit lane in the next couple of laps. We've already had basically half the GT4 field come down in for their stops here for the moment. There's Vobista there in the number 48 car, one of the prototypes to come down in. There are a couple of drips and drabs from prototypes deciding that now's a good time to stop in and amongst the GT4 pit party. Yeah,
there is quite a few stops actually going on. Wilkins has come in from the lead at the time. Joe Boot as well has been in from GT4 AM at least. Josh Boot, excuse me, in the number 6 car, has been in there. It's handed the lead to Philip Bjork at the moment for AM Racing Team by AMRT. We go back to GT4 Pro, where Christopher Smith is looking up the inside of Jaroslav Sebula at the Le Mans corner. Couldn't make it work, and indeed just dips in and out for a second, but is absolutely fine in this battle for 5th place. We are reaching that point, though, where it's maybe not that much use fighting with one another for now. You might as well leave it, because the pit stops will be commencing, or indeed continuing, very soon, and in they come now. It seems that everybody's in. Even Eric Grove from the lead is leading everyone onto pit lane as well here in GT4.
Yeah, we have Ethan Critchley from the prototypes also in as well at this stage. So this, for all intents and purposes, completes the pit stop cycle for GT4s. There are a couple of cars further down that haven't dipped down in just yet, but I would expect them to do so very imminently indeed. But there we see Eric Grove. He held a very healthy advantage coming down on towards the pit lane. Looks like he's going to maintain that coming off of the pit lane here as well as he trundles his way down.
29.3 the stop there for Eric Grove. Not sure whether we're expecting the GT4s to take tyres at all, or how many each stop at this stage, but or indeed at the hour mark as well. But that's for the strategists amongst you to work out over the course of the hour and a half. Stuart Bickley tries to make his way in towards a higher LMP3 place. He's 10th in Pro, but not 10th in the overall LMP3 standing, as you can see from the side light actually there, which displays 16th place. Although during pit stops, those numbers aren't exactly reliable all of the time because of people jumping up and down the order when they come in to make their stop, as Nathan Moore has decided to do from the lead now. Piers Pryor follows him in, and I think Jürgen Frank has as well. So the top three may well all be on pit lane together now from the lead.
Yep, it is, and well, Pryor gaining a little bit of time on pit entry there, which is great for his chances as they come to a stop in their pit boxes, all three right at the very start of pit lane here. What are the pit stop times like going to be for these LMP2s? We've seen a big range actually, 18 to about 25 seconds for other prototypes that have come in just at this particular pit stop cycle. Will there be any jumps inside the top three as well? That's what we're waiting for, and there will be a jump. Jürgen Frank gets himself out first.
Well, this is important for the course of this race. Jürgen Frank with a slightly shorter stop. I mean, it's not by much, but it's by more than enough. Piers Pryor gets very close to Nathan Moore as well. That is certainly closed up. And if these two fight, then they have the danger of staring themselves into the abyss right now, because Jürgen Frank is in the lead by 3.5 seconds, and they've got to somewhat work together here to make sure that he doesn't extend that over the course of this stint, so that they try and catch him, and then they see what they're going to do for the final stops. But this is the interest with this championship. Hour and a half is such an awkward distance with the fuel limitations that this LMP3 has now in this championship. It makes it awkward to work out what you're going to do. It gives us strategic differences, and it gives us a situation like this with Jürgen Frank in the lead, but likely going to be closed down over the course of the next half hour by Nathan Moore and Piers Pryor in second and third.
The interesting thing to note here, Ewan, I didn't see any of those three cars go up in the jacks.
No.
So all no tyre stops.
I think so. I think I saw Quentin Guides on the jacks, or at least someone from about 5th, 6th, 7th kind of area, at least from qualifying. That's how we work out from the pit boxes. But for the most part, they actually were staying on the floor. There weren't many on the jacks, in all honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. So at least for the first stop here, most drivers deciding that they don't want the fresh rubber. They want to continue on out there on the tyres that they had started with. I imagine the tyre stops will come more into prevalence once we get that second mandatory pit stop underway to give you some fresh rubber to go chasing towards the very end of the race. But it's interesting to see the difference though, because Nathan Moore 25.6 second stop, Piers Pryor 25.4, a 21.7 for Jürgen Frank. So he's taken 4 seconds less fuel.
Yeah, so that's going to obviously give him a earlier final stop. Is it going to be a longer one? Not necessarily, but it could be. So let's see in about half an hour's time when we get there for Jürgen Frank as he leads the way. Speaking of leading the way, by the way, Paul Smith is leading the GT4 category. Excuses for being maybe slightly overexcited, but I am excited because the 108 is out front right now. 9 seconds that Paul has over Berridge in second place. For the moment, that's Lee Berridge of Boosted in the 54, but RaceSpotTV's own Paul Smith is leading a race.
Yeah, he hasn't. He only came down in. He only came down in, a couple of laps into the race because of the incident that he had. But either way, you know, leading is leading, right? That's what he'll be saying.
I was going to leave that information entirely out of my sentence on purpose. I did suspect that was the case, but I just wanted to give him the moment, and there we go. He's got his moment, leading at the front, and we're enjoying it anyway. Back into LMP3 we go. This is the fight for third in AM, in towards turn 1. That was very close, well, more than close for Adam Locke, I'm afraid. He is in the wall, and that looked like a fairly rude serve down it towards turn 3.
It was a very, very big shunt indeed, and well, just as you were singing his praises, Ewan, Paul Smith has spun it down towards pit lane.
No! Oh no. Well, serves me right for complimenting, I suppose. Here we go. There's the
there we go.
There's the spin in all its glory. Quite a convenient way to end yourself in pit lane, I suppose, but not the way he would have liked to lose his lead.
Not at all. Not at all. And I doubt he'll be happy with us even showing that on broadcast. So we'll just have to deal with his wrath afterwards, I suppose. But back to the racing action, though. Just to give you a little bit of an update on prototypes, because Jürgen Frank has sort of got himself a 2.3 second gap at the very front of the field, not being really closed in on at a huge rate of knots at the moment. Yes, he was about 0.3 of a second slower on that last lap than Nathan Moore, but the gap isn't immediately collapsing here, which is a positive sign for Frank. I have to wonder what the call is going to be later on in the race here, or what his mindset is, because of course, you know, logic will follow. If you take less fuel on this stop, you're going to have to take more on the next stop. And does he rate his chances at this stage in the race with clear air versus potentially charging back through later on?
Yeah, that's the key. That you've also got to factor in tyres here as well. Are there going to be any taken here? Because don't forget, you do fuel and tyres at the same time in LMP3, so that changes things a little bit from some other categories across iRacing, of course, although it is becoming more and more the norm. How many do you take? And, you know, if Frank has short-filled a little bit this time, if he's going to have to do a full fill next time, does that allow enough time for him at least to change 2? Or does it nullify the effect of changing 4 for the last half an hour? Is he extending that last stint to try and make as much use of a fresh set of tyres at the end of this race? Is he going to go to the end with having not changed any tyres at all? All of these are quite big mysteries that we're going to have to work out, and other teams and drivers are going to have to work out before the end of this race as well. I
mean, that's a scenario that makes sense, right? You might as well, like you said, nullify the loss in time in taking tyres by taking more fuel for that second stop. But we're quite ignorant at the moment. We have no idea if that will work, because we simply have really no history in this series with how these things work. Of course, we're used to, you know, maybe full tank LMP3s and GT4s. We know sort of what the deal is with those. But once you add a fuel limit and the mandatory stops in as well, it really changes things. You've got to remember as well, as you said earlier on, the LMP3 hasn't actually been out for very long, so there's also a lack of experience with this kind of strategic racing, not only with these two classes mixed together, of course, but also that LMP3 generally doesn't have a lot of miles on iRacing yet, coming to the end of its first season on the service over the course of the summer. So we're still learning a lot about that car, and some of these drivers may well be as well. Back to GT4, where there are battles going on in the lower part of the top 10, and also at the front of GT4 AM, I've got to say. Lee Berridge is leading, but at the moment, Josh Boot is closing in that 6 car, and there is the BMW, and there's the Porsche. That's your leading battle on your screen in GT4 AM, on your screen there in towards turn 10. Yeah, not that much between them on that last lap either. So this is looking like a pretty close situation for GT4 AM. We'll have to see how the differences between the two manufacturers factor into this one as well. That's the beauty of the GT4 class, you know, especially in this sort of situation where they're all able to mingle in and fight with each other, which is a great display a lot of the time. But for Berridge at the moment, just got to focus on putting those consistent laps in here for the moment. He is off cycle compared to the rest of the GT4 cars. He came in down the pit lane 11 laps ago. Most of the rest of the GT4s were down in 4 laps ago. So this may not be a a quote-unquote actual position here for Lee Berridge, but he's certainly still making it work.
He is still at the front of GT4 AM for now. Josh Boot in the 6th car, you can see just in behind. That's the closest leading battle. The next closest will be that one for the overall lead, where Jürgen Frank has nearly 3 seconds over Nathan Moore. Interested to see how Moore and Pryor are fighting with one another. Whether they are at all, well, they haven't got much option at the moment. They're just trying to make their way through traffic. This is that battle for the lower part of the top 10 that we were seeing earlier on, of course. I think both RD Simsport BMWs are involved with this one. Christopher Smith being one of them, and Guy Edwards the other, the 55 and the 83, fighting with one another. So it does seem that Moore and Pryor are not fighting one another, and that's the sensible thing here, really, until the final part of this race, because technically it's those two versus Frank right now. With the different strategies they've gone for, if Moore and Pryor fight with one another, then both of them will lose. But if they, keep it calm for the next quarter of an hour, then they've both got a chance of winning at least.
Frank has had the benefit of getting through on the bits of traffic that they've come across relatively easily here for the moment, and Moore and Pryor just about going to catch this next piece in the right place. Of course, they got same class traffic there in the form of Anton Oman as well, which is a little bit of a different situation to deal with. But they do manage to get disposed of them on the way down in towards Sunset Bend. But that gap for the race lead now up to 3 seconds as they head their way through here. And it looks like, Nathan Moore's going to have to go the long way around of a 2 wide here off the corner. Able to make that work out quite well as the prototype and one of the GT4s had a bit of a disagreement ahead of him.
We've not only got GT4 traffic for these leaders, but other LMP3s getting involved as well, which is a new phenomenon in the first half of this race. We're just still inside of, down in towards turn 3. The leaders go now as well. Moore with that slight advantage over Pierce there, who just hasn't had the run through traffic that he really would have wanted. To be honest, it's halted him quite drastically in the last couple of laps, unfortunately, as the lead just changed in GT4 AM, by the way, for what it's worth, just now in the lead there. But King will be closing in as a result of this as well from 4th. It just makes you wonder how many drivers are actually involved in the overall lead of this race for the actual win here, because we're talking about the top 3. Is it going to be more than a top 3 by the end of the day?
Could be, could well be, but might be a little bit of maybe a bit too early to speak here at the moment, given that we have another stop to go. Which can definitely really factor into the chances here, as that LMP2, I keep saying LMP2 because I'm so used to the slow LMPs class being the LMP2, but no, they're LMP3s. Andy Roof that time heading his way through on this fighting pack of GTs, and Rafael Drage is going to get a little bit hard done by there with that little bit of a lapping procedure as Guinness heads his way through. Drage just losing a bit of time there in the 82.
It just splits apart the fight for now. Rafael Trezas is the Semper Racing Aston Martin. You can just see behind, following the RD Simsport BMWs of Guy Edwards and Christopher Smith there. Oh, and a mistake there from Edwards. Smith goes down the inside, and the Semper Racing driver Dries will go through as well. So Guy Edwards losing 2-1 there with a simple mistake really down at Le Mans.
It was a daring move from Critchley in the prototype as well to come into that basically full speed in the prototype. Could have ended very, very badly indeed, but thankfully the awareness was there on the part of all the drivers to make sure there wasn't a big incident. But yeah, it just goes to show how one little mistake into a battle can really shake up the system, and well, Drage unable to, well, he did actually capitalise on that one as he headed his way through on Guy Edwards. But yeah, it's a very, very costly mistake sometimes when you get caught out of line here at Sebring.
It is not a particularly wide circuit all of the time, of course, but even when it is, doesn't mean it's easy by any means, and Edwards finding that out pretty quickly. Let's go back to LMP3 AM as Anton Oman tries to make his way through into 8th place for the moment. It's just up in front of him, the 4 of Andy Jones. in the standings at least. Not sure whether that's actually the case in terms of LMP3 overall, because we're quite far down now into the bottom end of the top 20. That was quite close. Quite a common mistake, actually, but did well to find himself not spinning around or even worse in the wall.
Yeah, definitely not the first person I've seen push wide through there, out into the dirt. But like you said, able to gather it up. We got Berridge down on towards the pit lane. This was your GT4 AM leader, at least for a little bit, but he'll cycle back out a little bit further down. He's going to come out 19th in GT4s. I don't know what that translates to in GT4 AM, but yeah, definitely not in those high positions here just yet. And it's so tough when you're caught off cycle like that, because it really puts you off your game. You can't really just kind of follow what everyone else is doing with regards to the pit stops. You actually need to make sure you have your own plan that may or may not work out, and it's quite a lonely place to be sometimes.
Yes, Berridge filters out in 6th place in AM, by the way, as Jack Osborne drops a position outside of the top 5 in GT4. Not sure whether that was overtake or mistake, but there was certainly a change, as now both RD Simsport cars are going to be dispatched with Edwards overtaken last time round. It's Christopher Smith this time in the 83. Oh, there's the contact for Jack Osborne. It was an incident. Thankfully, that's one of the wider points on the circuit where you do find yourself, well, no barriers for ages. But Osborne has lost his top 5 as a result of that incident there.
Yeah, taking a little bit of a trip through the grass. But like I said, nothing to hit, thankfully, in that entire sequence. So he's able to recover and have all the panels straight on the car. Meanwhile, more prototype traffic that this GT4 battle has to deal with, and Draz is trying to pull away in and amongst the chaos here, and has done rather well in that actually over the course of the last couple of moments. So it's not only the prototypes that can use the traffic to their advantage, it's the GT4s as well, to try and use them as a...
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, Jonathan Walker, the only one who gets away unscathed there. It was one of the LMP3s spun around on the way towards the hairpin. It causes chaos behind. It was Matthew Crisp first. Oh, no. It's an LMP3 trying to get back going again. Unfortunately, reversing at one of the worst times. Unfortunately, Ben Bishop it was. He was, first of all, looking for an inside move on Richard Simnor, I think that is. He first of all gets out the way quite nicely, but then this part, the reversing part, was not ideal whatsoever. And it affects at least 2 of the GT4s.
Yeah, well, it affects more the GT4s as well, as he was trying to get back going, collect another RD Simsport car. Yeah, I mean, if you want a tutorial on how not to rejoin, that will probably be the first thing that I pull up after this race, if anyone wants to talk about it. It's I'm not sure what the thought pattern was to go into reverse there, because you had plenty of space to go forwards, just out into the grass and do it.
Yep, and there's nothing wrong with that either, to just take a trip through the grass to get back going again or whatever. So yeah, I can't quite understand it either, unfortunately, but it's happened. Ben Bishop will have got damage from it as well, of course, but it doesn't change the fact that things have gone wrong for the GT4s as well, or some of them anyway, in that battle we were watching. And well, that is a shame to witness, unfortunately, down at the hairpin. Still 40 minutes to go here in the opening round of the World Sports Car Championship here from Sebring. 6 rounds on the calendar of 90 minutes racing. It's an unusual distance, really, but that's what makes it interesting in terms of strategy, and that's how he's got Jürgen Frank out in the lead right now. How much longer is he going to be in that lead for, and when are we going to see things change around, as we've got battles for podium places in AM. That is a pass down the inside from well, I can't quite identify for that. Oh, Mac Mafarko it was, to get down the inside for 3rd place. There he is for Writer Engineering Esports, with Tony Draper right behind, Century Sim Racing. And this is actually a class battle. Of course, all of the LMP3 battles matter for points, of course. They all score from the same tree, if you like, but this is actually a fight for an actual podium here at LMP3 AM. Still nearly half a minute away from the leader.
Mac Mafarko doing a very good job with that pass, despite the tongue twister of a name that he has. It's definitely one of the more interesting ones that I've seen. But well, if you can make passes like that, well, it's all fine and dandy, isn't it? As they get past Andy Scheel, who was one of the front runners early on, but unfortunately got caught up in an incident. As we see another incident with Orman back into the tyre barriers and gets back going again. Didn't quite see the instigation of that one, as my attention was more focused towards the timing screen. But yeah, with Andy Scheel, though, it's a shame that he's this far down the order, given the strength that he showed in the early stages. He just got caught up in an incident that was completely not his fault.
Yeah, solo incident for Oman, and that's probably what he was saying actually as he went backwards into the wall. Apologies, he's probably heard that joke before, but it's probably true. Out of the final corner for this battle in the lower part of the GT4 Pro standings, although it is now for 6th place. There have been some pit stops here that's just heightening this one a little bit. Guy Edwards it is in the BMW, looking to make the pass on one of the Semper Racing Aston Martins, who was wary that an LMP3 was going to rip round the outside there, because as you mentioned earlier, you do have to be committed from start to finish. You can't change your line halfway round in one of these cars.
Yeah, that was great heads-up driving from the both of them there to see that prototype coming and to just have a little bit of an inkling that they'll try and commit around the outsides there. And with the way it tightens up on exit there, it just is probably one of the most scary parts of the circuit to go too wide through. Especially if you get surprised by a faster car in a faster class. So great work from those guys there to make sure that everything was kept on the grey stuff. But this is going along quite well here at the moment. Guy Edwards still trying to lock onto the back of Rafael Drage. They have kept each other pretty honest here in the grand scheme of things. Of course, RD Simpson was somewhat disrupted by the incident into the hairpin with the rejoin that we saw just about 5 or 10 minutes ago. But it seems like that's it seems like the Guy Edwards still continuing on relatively well. I think he was able to avoid it, and I think it was his teammate that got involved.
I think so. Although, well, the RD Sport cars are still running pretty close to one another for now. Just over 35 minutes to go, so we're getting to that point where you can fill up and go to the end now in either category. Although it's probably quite marginal for the GT4s to do that, I would argue, but the LMP3s are probably not far away from that moment in the race. And we've got to ask ourselves the question, how much further can Jürgen Frank go now? He's held that 3-second gap quite nicely, but what will the gap look like after the pit stops? Because, of course, there will be quite a few laps, I'd imagine, maybe 2 or 3, where Frank and Nathan Moore are on different parts of the racetrack experiencing different amounts of traffic.
Yeah, that's why it's sometimes relatively difficult to judge exactly how the race is going when you're seeing things fluctuate so much with the traffic getting involved, the traffic not getting involved. It can happen like that here at I was going to say Road Atlanta. It's Sebring. It's Sebring. I had Road Atlanta on the mind because that's the track where that's perhaps featured the most in things like Petit Le Mans. But here at Sebring, it also tends to be an issue as well. There's a couple of choke points that you can really get caught up in through the hairpin. You've also got choke point through Sunset Bend where the GTs can't really go as quickly as the prototypes do there. So the prototypes have to try and tiptoe through. So if you get caught in traffic at the wrong place at the wrong time, it can lose you multiple seconds quite easily.
Unfortunately, we're not visiting Road Atlanta on this schedule because it's one of the fantastic American racetracks as well. Not only for multi-class racing, but for any kind of racing. Not going to a tight circuit like that, really. This is probably one of the tightest if you want to put this up against Watkins Glen. Decide amongst yourselves which one's more difficult. But that's probably the two most difficult on the schedule, as we see Nathan Moore falling further and further into the clutches of Pierce Pryor now, who has done this for the second stint in a row. He doesn't get off to a wonderful start in these stints. He's not fastest driver on the circuit fresh out the pit lane, but he is fastest by the end of the stint. We saw this in the opener. He was challenging Nathan Moore's lead quite substantially towards the end of the first stint, and now he's challenging his second place towards the end of an hour of racing.
Yeah, it seems like he does come alive at this stage, and we'll see how well that bodes for the end of the event. A little bit of a tyre whisperer, perhaps, at least with the stints that we've seen from him so far. Of course, it has helped that the track conditions are relatively cold as he goes for the dive.
Well, Nathan Moore there gave him a lot of room. It makes you wonder whether that may have been coordinated, although the run from Moore and the exit maybe doesn't suggest so. Another bit of dart into the slipstream from Pierce Pryor there as he just takes advantage of the slower Mercedes. He is into second place though. Finally, the pass is complete and Nathan Moore just slips backwards into third place. I do think, though, that may have been slightly coordinated between the two. Nathan Moore swung very wide in towards that final corner.
Yeah, it was. And Pryor pushed out so wide. There could have been, probably about, I don't know, 15, 20 centimetres between himself and the wall there. It was a relatively close run thing for Pryor there, but he stayed committed to it. A little bit of an error there through the hairpin. Might allow Moore to try and come back at him here. Does he even want to try and lose a little bit more time side by side, especially with traffic ahead? They both dart towards the inside here, and Nathan Moore will decide. I don't want to press him too hard here for the moment. We have a bigger goal in mind as we see Berridge. Ooh. Ouch.
Not nice, not good on the exit of Le Mans there. Already seen him, but leading a couple of laps earlier, Berridge. You don't get any points for leading laps, by the way, but something to note as Pryor darts through the middle of two GT4s. You can tell that we're getting towards the end of the race and times are getting desperate for these two because Jürgen Frank's lead has now grown to 4.5 seconds almost now. 4.5 as they exit Le Mans, including some LMP3s in between them now as well. Time to get a little bit worrying, and Pierce Pryor diving through traffic any way he can, almost in desperation to try and catch the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe he felt like he was getting held up by Nathan Morris. Here's an instant with Chris. Oh, that's a big impact there. Front pit from flying off, at least initially there. Thankfully, he doesn't roll back into traffic. He takes the toe back to pit lane there. We'll have to see exactly who else was involved in all of that situation. It was with Tony Draper, I believe, there in the number 23 car. And I think, they're on separate laps, aren't they?
They're certainly in separate classes. And they may well be on separate laps as well. Draper is down towards the lower end of the top 10 in AM. And he just clips Critchley. Contact made. And that's not good, unfortunately, for Eastman Critchley there, who finds himself in the wall in a very big way. That was a big accident as Daniel Sesley makes his way into the pit lane, along with one of the other LMP3 AMCA. Is that Draper just behind, maybe, on the way into pit lane? Not entirely sure, but Sesley's certainly in. This is certainly the point where you can pit and make it to the end of the race. Even Jürgen Frank, who Shortfield is still going nearly half an hour from the end.
Yeah, doing very well indeed. Of course, Jürgen Frank is definitely one of the more experienced sim racers that are on the iRacing service. He's been a part of major championships, top split broadcasts. I mean, he was racing well before I even became a commentator on RaceSpotTV broadcasts. That's the sort of situation that we see there.
Yeah, I can absolutely concur with that, which makes sense because you were before me.
You were here sooner than me.
Well, yeah, it makes absolute sense. But I was watching Jürgen Frank in about 2015 when I used to, when I was watching RSN broadcasts at that period. He was around then at the top of his game, and he's still around now at the top of his game. Still competing in very top-level championships all across sim racing, not just here in World Sim Racing.
Still with SimRC as well.
Yes, that's the remarkable thing.
That's loyalty right there, as he has come down towards the pit lane, by the way.
He has, so now we'll get a battle between him and Pierce Pryor and Nathan Moore with a sort of ready-made alliance, if you like, on the fly throughout today's race, or at least the last half an hour of it, where they've had to try and chase down the German while refraining from fighting each other at times. But yeah, in an esport where loyalty to teams is so few and far between on occasion, Jürgen Frank has been up there for a long time for SimRC. There's Paul Smith having a run through the grass. That's pretty unnecessary, but Hugo wanted to show it anyway, so we'll have a look at it because it's Paul Smith going off into the grass. I'm sure I'll experience the same later in another RaceSpotTV broadcast when I'm driving. Anyway, we'll get that to it when we go to it. But unfortunately, he's quite far down now in GT4. I'm down in 8th place for now.
I was having a very close look at Jürgen Frank's stop. He didn't go up in the jacks either this time. So I think he's going to try and do this entire race on the single set of tyres.
Well, we'll see if that's unusual or not when Piers Pryor and Nathan Moore come into the pit lane. There is Jürgen Frank in the main part of his screen. The unfortunate thing for him is that he's got quite a lot of traffic, and not only GT4 but LMP3 as well. And you just wonder how much that's going to hold him back compared to the relative free nature of the right-hand side of your screen, where there's not much traffic at all.
Well, he's been able to squeak his way through there, has Jürgen Frank. We'll keep an eagle eye on the state of Nathan Moore and Piers Pryor. They decide not to come down on towards the pit lane this time around, although Pryor did get very close indeed to that wall on the outside there once again as they charge their way in towards turn number 1 and narrowly go around the outside of Hassan there. Wow, that was leaving it a bit close there.
It was, but they've been doing it all race long, and so far it's been paying off, especially Pryor, actually. He's been very committed in these higher speed corners. You noted it earlier out of Sunset Bend, how close he's been getting. That's just been every single lap from him, and every time in towards turn 1 as well, he's round the outside of someone, and that commitment now is putting him a little bit ahead of Nathan Moore in terms of a gap now. He's trying to put another lap on one of the LMP3s that gives him a little bit of room in towards the hairpin, and all of a sudden Pryor is giving himself a bit of an advantage to go into this final stint.
He has, absolutely, so that's great to see. But still waiting for that stop to come through. Of course, the reason, if you're just tuning in, Jürgen Frank, he had a bit of a short fuel on the first stop here, so that makes sense why he's come down into towards the pit lane a couple of laps at least before the rest of the LMP2 class. Remember, we are fuel limited on both classes here as well to try and force these 2 stops into fruition. As we see yet more GT4s come down and in here for their final stops.
I think that was Rafael Drottas having a terrible time trying to get his car into the box. It was certainly one of the Aston Martins going forwards, then backwards again, and then forwards again, trying to get that pit stop to start. It's a bit of a nightmare down on pit lane. It's seen a bit of that so far today at Sebring. It's a big grid, of course, and a relatively big pit lane, but it gets very busy because both LMP3 and GT4 classes are pitting at the same time, basically, as Jürgen Frank there tries to make his way through some more traffic here. He's already in 6th in LMP3, by the way, now at the inside of Bishop, which is never a great place to be, being slowed up once more. Is this the time now where he's being just held back from the lead now? Piers Pryor is flying out front in the lead of this race, and Jürgen Frank is struggling to find his way through on some of these drivers, although it's maybe Corentin Guinness just in behind one of those in front of him, to be honest. It's certainly one of the Sim RC drivers flashing their lights on the way towards Sunset Bend furiously, and now down the inside of the final turn. It was Jürgen Frank trying to make his way through on John Williams for 5th place.
Yeah, this is the most dangerous time of the race for Jürgen Frank because, like you mentioned, he has to deal with all the traffic as he immediately came off the pit lane. He has to deal with traffic that's fighting for position, don't forget, as well, so it might be a different situation there, especially with John Williams there, as it took a while for him to try and negotiate there as the traffic is within every right to fight him because it's for position. So this is the trickiest phase of the race here for Jürgen Frank, and well, he held a 4-second advantage coming down on towards the pit lane just 2 laps ago, but you have to wonder how much of that is going to be eaten up by both the shorter stops for Pryor and Moore, and of course the traffic situation.
Here is Piers Pryor leading the race, leading the way for the opening World Sportscar Championship round here at Sebring. Nathan Moore closes just a little bit in towards Le Mans. That little bit of traffic helps bring this gap now down below half a second again. It grew to 2.5 at one stage, but we're back to a leading fight, and with less than 25 minutes to go, pit stops can't be far away. These LMP3s can only go, of course, 60% of their fuel tanks. compared to normal, and Piers Pryor is into the pit lane. So now the big moment. Nathan Moore can go one longer. You wonder whether this is Pryor purposely pitting early, or whether it's Moore has actually saved a lap compared to Pryor. I wouldn't imagine it's the second one, but either way, we're going to get our answer now. Has Jürgen Frank done enough to hold on to this net race lead?
Oh, Jürgen Frank is just coming down the back straight now, just as Pryor gets himself stopped in his box. We're expecting a shorter stop here from Piers Pryor compared to Jürgen Frank. Jürgen Frank's stop was a 24.8, so it'll follow that should be less than that for Pryor and Moore once he comes down on towards the pit lane. We'll just have to wait and see. They are coming towards the end of their stops now. 20.3 on the pit lane for Pryor.
Where is Jürgen Frank on the right-hand side? It's a long way round, of course, on the exit here for Piers Pryor, and there goes Jürgen Frank. He's just about held on to the lead despite a 4-second longer pit stop, and not even having 4 seconds at the start of that phase. He's still ahead of Piers Pryor, even despite all of that pushing very late on. The gap is not big, though, and based on what we know about Pryor, he gets stronger as these stints go on. He gets faster towards the end, and in 20 minutes time, he may well be a formidable force on the back of that Sim RC leading driver.
It might well be. It might be scary moments here for Jürgen Frank. He's going to have to pull out all the stops in the final 23 minutes to try and hold on to this. Don't forget, we still have that stop from Nathan Moore to come as well. That might change the situation again.
There's John Williams just behind in the darker livery, behind the unmistakable GTA pink car of Piers Pryor. Can spot them from the moon with that kind of livery. He's on the back of the iconic Sim RC LMP3 just up in front. Where does Nathan Moore fit into all of this as well? He's into the pit lane now. Is he going to have a shorter pit stop than Pryor and come out as the meat in the sandwich between the both of them?
He could do. I mean, it was about a second coming off the pit lane, the gap between the two cars, and so if Nathan Moore is a second faster than Pryor was on the stop here, that might result in at least a side-by-side with Jürgen Frank coming off the pit lane. But Jürgen Frank's outlaps have been amazing. Nothing short of amazing so far in this one. So he's going along very, very well indeed. Moore is down on towards the pit lane. Jürgen Frank is just coming out of Sunset Bend now with the traffic on the outside. Let's see.
Now Moore goes. This is going to be close. Is Moore going to restore his lead? This will be a turn up for the box. He's on the outside. He's exiting pit lane in front of the others.
18.2 second stop. That was more than enough.
Wow. Nathan Moore leads this race. That was unexpected. Jürgen Frank is in second. He's already got Pryor right behind, but they're both going to have some catching to do because it's 2 seconds for Nathan Moore, who's played a masterclass on the both of them. He's got 1 lap longer than Pryor. He's got a few longer than Frank at the end of this race, and the shortest final stop of them all has given him the race lead with 21 minutes to go.
Yeah. Strategic masterclass there from Moore, but he's got to finish it out now. Still a lot of time left in this race to go. Now he's coming out on a decent amount of GT4 traffic, which certainly won't help his situation if he can't get through it effectively.
And there's irony there. His teammate in the form of Andy Schmiel, the McLaren driver, just up in front of him there. Of course, was up there in the top 2 earlier in that class, but no longer. Jürgen Frank and Piers Pryor will have to negotiate the same traffic, though, don't forget. Out of Tower Corner they go now, in towards Bishop. That's a real mess further back. Pryor and Frank will be at each other's heels on the way in towards Le Mans as well. There they are. Frank has held on to that second place for now, but there will have been some sketchy moments there. The gap just closed by 2 or 3 tenths through that group of traffic.
It does. It really does. Just gets that little bit closer, but Frank and Pryor are going to need more little situations like that. A shallower line into Sunset Bend being taken by Pryor. They have traffic on the exit that they have to deal with here. Up close and personal with the wall as ever, especially if you're on the number 22, and they get disposed of the traffic there. The rest of the prototypes have come down in and serve their final stops here as John Roberts and Stuart Bickley being the last ones. 3 wide.
And there's the bravery from Piers Pryor that's got him second place. Jürgen Frank with a moment's hesitancy, and Piers Pryor was not going to need a second invitation. He rips round the outside for, quite frankly, the millionth time this race through turn 1. He's been so brave through that turn, and it's gifted him a second placed running in this race right now, ahead of Jürgen Frank. That was the important pass for him. Now he can set his sights on the leader and whether he can close that 2.2 second margin.
Pass of the race by far, and we might already have a contender for pass of the season. That is absolutely crazy. Pryor, I mean, like you said, he's shown that he can do that. He's done it to lap traffic, but he hasn't done it to try and secure a pass just yet. It seemed like he had infinite grip on the outside line there. That was something special.
It really was. This is it from the area above. Frank with a bit of hesitancy. Pryor right round the outside, almost as if he's got all the grip in the world. So impressive and fully deserving of that second place.
Car just gripped up. It's stuck to the tarmac like glue, or rather concrete as it is here at Sebring. Let's have a look at the replay from the onboard. Sees the situation going on ahead. Bang, around the outside. No sniff of understeer whatsoever. Awesome.
And as you said as well, not only did he have the talent and the grip and the ability to do it, but he saw it coming. He read the situation before it had developed. He knew that he was going to be on the outside there, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he executed possibly higher than even his wildest dreams there through turn 1. Another lap completed then. 18 minutes to go here at Sebring. Nathan Moore has 3 seconds over Pierce Pryor. We're going to see an almighty chase now from the driver of the 22 just in behind. It's going to be quite fantastic to watch. Are we going to get a leading fight though at the end of this race? Is Nathan Moore going to hold them at arm's length for the remainder of this, or is he going to have to get his elbows out towards the end?
Well, 2.7 second gap would definitely be relatively comfortable at this stage, but we've already seen so many times in this race so far that Pryor comes alive towards the end. And that's, what was it? It was a similar gap towards the end of the first stint, was it? About 2 seconds. That came down to what? 0.7 at the end of the first stint. So it's a bit of a wider gap this time around, but there's so much more on the line.
Yeah, there's of course a different race situation, but you're right, it's a similar margin that Pryor has got to close in with 17 minutes remaining. This is battles further on in the GT4 order. Martin Crisp is trying to hold on from Andy Shield there in the 007 McLaren. This has, to be fair, been a very decent recovery from Shield, who found himself in the wall on the back straight about an hour ago now. Won't recover to 1-2 with his teammate Eric Grove, unfortunately, but he will recover to at least a decent point score. Yeah,
that's about all the recovery that you could have really hoped for if you're in his position at the moment. It was a great start for Pure Sims, you know, getting that qualifying performance in the bag, get themselves started on the best foot, but unfortunately, you know, these incidents do happen, and trying to recover is something that requires a different skill set. You know, it requires a different temperament as well, to try and get back in there, get stuck in, and try and finish the car in the best place that you can. A lot of people will just decide to retire at that point, especially with a big instance like he had. But
in the wall, is that Pryor? Someone's in the wall there. Is that the leader? Someone's in the wall there in that battle for second in LMP3 Pro. You can see it in the bottom right hand side of your screen. I'm certain someone was in the wall there. Is it Jürgen Frank maybe? I think I can see a bit of yellow and black. It's quite hard to see now in the darkness. It was Frank. Frank, I'm certain, has been in the wall down there at turn 3. He's just broken a bit too late and found himself helpless to avoid the barriers down there. We'll see if he can hang on to the place, because he's already in the grass at turn 1. Does it go from bad to worse here? Oh, it does. It's a nightmare opening to this lap for Jürgen Frank.
Yeah, single car instance there. No one else around. Of course, the sight picture does change, you know, as we get into the darker hours of this race. You know, the braking markers that you use maybe tend to look a little bit different. This is why, you know, ever since, you know, they had the whole day-night cycle, like using shadows for braking markers is not a great idea. I know some people do that in other games, but when you have the situation here in iRacing, it's really actually a detriment. But, you know, even then, you get a little bit more tunnel vision at night as well. I'm trying to make excuses for him, is all I'm doing here, but But for Jürgen Frank, though, he's not going to be very happy about that. When he doesn't lose third place, thankfully, might have gotten a bit of damage as a result. But Thomas King is about 17, 18 seconds behind him, so he's not going to be immediately dove in on.
Not for now, but he will be looking over his shoulder rather than forwards at this stage. He's flashing his lights. You can see straight line speed's certainly down for Frank here, because he was passed with ease by a lapped car there. That's not a battle for position. But you can see as soon as there's a corner, he's all right again. So suspension, I think, is everything, and everything's in line, but the aerodynamics are all over the place by the looks of that. We go further back to John Williams here, who's fighting for 6th place in LMP3, and Daniel Sesley, who's in the 7th position. Those are the first of the 2 prototypes you can see going through your screen right here. They've just negotiated a little bit of traffic here with just less than quarter of an hour to go, and fights are going on even further behind as well. It's side by side with Guy Edwards again in the RD Sunsport BMW. Martin Crisp on the defensive in the Mercedes there, so Edwards now involved in this fight also with Andy Shield here, who's still in 9th place in that McLaren.
Yeah, great little contingent here down in GT4s, looking to give us a show in the final moments of this race. Update LMP1 Pro lead, though, as we see, Edwards going to push a little bit wide here. Not exactly ideal. It might allow Shield to look down the inside here in towards turn 3. Does commit to the move, half alongside, but gets caught up over the curb. And now he's going to get swamped by prototypes.
That was awkward. Now, yeah, as you say, prototypes are going to get in the way entirely of this battle for the moment for Andy Shield. Time's on his side, and he'll fancy himself in terms of pace against those 2 in front. It's just a case of actually doing the work now of getting through. Nearly 13 minutes to go, so you wouldn't be worried about him running out of time in this race for now, but he can't afford to wait for too long before making these moves. He's got 2 cars that he can realistically get through for another couple of points before the end of the day.
With the race lead, gap is down to 2.5 seconds now between Moore and Pryor, as we see Shield go for another little look there on the BMW ahead, but it's not going to be successful in that little escapade here just yet. Of course, you know, we've already mentioned that Shield is on a bit of a recovery drive here, and is doing very, very well at it indeed in that McLaren 570S. It's gone about as well as you could expect after an incident like that for that 007 car.
Yeah, I think so. I think after that he's done everything perfectly. And to be fair, looking back at the incident, obviously it wasn't his fault, as we commented at the time. So really, can we say that he's actually made any mistakes today? I'm not sure that we can. Just a bit of bad luck befalling him today, which has put him in this situation. It does make you worry a little bit about the championship situation, because Eric Grover's absolutely wiped the floor with everybody else today. If he, you know, has another 5 decent races and stays at least near to Smeal, his teammate, then it's going to be very difficult for the teammate to catch Eric Grove here, because there are, you know, he's lost on quite a few points today, but it'll be difficult to gain those back again over the course of the next rounds.
It will be, and it does mean a tough championship for this point forward for those drivers that have had a poor Sebring, like you mentioned, Andy Shield. But you know, you got to be in it to win it, and Shield's definitely still in it at the moment, and potentially another position on offer before this race is done. 10 minutes 40 seconds to get this one done, and it's looking very, very close. Coming through Big Bend here, might have an opportunity to send it on the brakes into the hairpin. The prototype will make it 3 wide down the inside here as Shield goes for the move in the middle. Can he pass the RD Synsport car coming off exit? Yes, he can. He gets the power down.
He does get through. I can't really tell if that prototype made it easier or harder there, but he's through anyway. And Edwards now will have to pick himself up from that and try and defend as well from the 82 Semper Racing, that car that's not too far away either towards the end of this race. I have to say, it's got very dark towards the end of this one. I wasn't quite expecting this, because it's only 9 PM in Sim. But I guess we are in the sort of springtime in Sim as well in May, but even so, maybe I'm just used to summer sunsets at the moment, but it's properly dark out there now. Picking your way through the darkness with the headlights is proving to be a bit of a challenge, but well, partly because there's so few external lights at this circuit, but doesn't seem to be phasing Shield for now as we go further up towards this pipe inside the lower ends of the top 5. Once again, John Williams has been trying to hold on from Daniel Sesley for quite some time for 6th place here, and he's managed it up until this point, but he's still got nearly 10 minutes to complete that task.
Battle has been raging on this one through thick and thin. Still yet undecided here at the moment. 0.3 of a second between the two. Got a bit of traffic ahead on the way into the hairpin, and might get caught up behind the same class traffic there as Ward. Oh, that's not an ideal place to get out of the way. I'm not sure if he had much of a choice though, but they do get themselves through on it. But yeah, it's never ideal when the lapped car ahead drastically changes their lines as the move has gone for.
Looks to the outside, can't do it there. Going to be difficult to get through now in the final 10 minutes, you'd imagine, for Sesley, because struggled so far. And if he hasn't been able to do it yet, then you do wonder what's going to change to make it happen. Traffic certainly could be that difference. But he's had traffic opportunities before and not been able to make them count on John Williams here, who's on the defensive again. He'll have to do it from the outside in towards Le Mans. Gives plenty of room to Sesley, who maybe wasn't quite committed enough there through that section of corners. He'll look for the exit out of Le Mans now and move into Sunset, because the two of them are very, very close. He'll have to do it on the outside at Sunset Bend.
He will. Long way around. Of course, the differing lines can work coming through here. It could make the difference coming on exit as Sedgley takes a big, wide arc to try and then cut in towards the exit. Can he carry the momentum around? Slow GT4 car on the driver's right-hand side there. Sedgley maintains the overlap on the way through the start-finish line. Now down in towards turn number 1. Williams will give him a bit of a squeeze there towards the inside. Powering around the outside comes Williams. Still not able to quite get clear. He does now in towards turn 3.
Oh!
Essentially, he's going to send it.
Contacts as well on the way towards turn 3. More contact as well. Williams gets out of shape. Sesley forced to the outside of turn 5 as well. And Williams gives him the room. He'll have the inside for Big Bend. And maybe this is the chance now. As on the way towards the hairpin, Sesley is going to have the inside line. And maybe the position as well. 6th place should surely be his. John Williams looking from left to right for a move here on the hairpin. Can't happen for him, I'm afraid. And finally, Sesley has made his way through in a battle that lasted a very long time.
Yeah, great little sequence there, and getting it done, at least to trying to get clear out of turn 3. Eventually it works out into the hairpin for Sedgley there, but it was a lot of hard work that went into that particular pass. You can see the replay of Jonathan Walker here in the not replay, excuse me, battle for 5th in GT Pro. This is live pictures for that position.
It is. This is final spots inside the top 5 now, being fought over. Jonathan Walker at the front of this battle for Freem UK. The 188 on the way down towards the hairpin as well. So, yeah, he's sandwiched in there. It's Christopher Smith who's at the front of the train in 4th place, and then there's loads involved here. 6th place as well. Not too far away will be the Semper Racing driver of Yaroslav Sebring, I think, will be homing in on these guys as well. Not sure there'll be time for him to get involved quite, but he's not far away. Oh no, he is right there as well. So Chris will be not too far away. Shield, it's a very congested part of the order actually for GT4. The lead is nearly 30 seconds, or the leader is nearly 30 seconds ahead of the rest, but after that it's very, very close.
Yeah, mid-pack seems to be rather tight in the GT4s in general here, as they're continuing to have to deal with prototypes sneak through on them. There's been not that many.
Contact, and it's which of the drivers?
Smith.
I think it's Christopher Smith. Yeah, Christopher Smith in the RD Sport BMW. I think he's just got onto the curb through Le Mans there and has spun into the wall. Classic mistake to make, as it's side by side in LMP3 as well. A little bit further down. This is a lot further down, I think, for AM positions, quite possibly. Not entirely sure. It is indeed Toby Ward looking for a top 5 here, ahead of Andy Jones. Still side by side between them. Another battle that's just going on and on and on, and this circuit is providing it again and again in this combination through Tower Corner they go. Absolutely dead level as Toby Ward still can't find his way through.
Yes. Ooh, there was a bit of a tiny overlap there, but the nose is chopped as Andy Jones holds on to position from Ward there. I don't think this battle is over. Here's the here's the incident with Chris Smith. That's never one you want to see. Car just broke traction, nothing you can do, just a passenger at that point.
Yep. A real shame as well, because he was inside the top 5 and running well. So a shame to see. Looking down the inside again there for Toby Ward. He was given a little bit of room there by Jones, but was nowhere near late enough on the brakes at Sunset Bend. 4 minutes to go. There'll be 3 laps for these drivers. It will be 2 for Nathan Moore when he next crosses the line, and with a gap of over 3 seconds, maybe for the first time this race, he can be comfortable.
I don't think there's really any point you can be comfortable in this one because, well, with Nathan Moore, I mean, that gap was up to 4.2 seconds at one point. Now it's down to 3.2, so he's lost a second over the course of the period of time when I last noticed it. So that's not exactly ideal for him. But I think with 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go, it's still going to require a monumental effort for Pryor to really do anything about this as far as LMP3 Pro is concerned.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest gap we've seen all day, which is the reason why I say maybe can be comfortable, but I do realise it's not actually a very big gap, is it at all? At 3.5 seconds. As I say, did go up to 4 briefly, but that's got away quite quickly. As Andy Shield is still looking for more places. As Martin Crisp, who he's alongside now, you can see the Mercedes, well, you might not be able to see, but on the left-hand side of your screen is Martin Crisp in the Mercedes. On the right-hand side is Andy Shield, who is into 6th place in the McLaren, recovering wonderfully well from his incident over an hour ago. And, whoa, that was close as well, but he's going to have some defending to do here with the Mercedes now on the other side of him. Still on the outside on the way in towards turn 1. And breaks early, so Shield will have a decent time of holding on to that for now, but Crisp is going to get the over and under, and it's going to happen again, all over again in towards turn 3. Down the inside in the Mercedes he will go. They'll run door to door through this tightening section, through 3, 4 and 5, and Martin Crisp is going to hang on to this place by the looks of it, through turn 5. He's done very well there to hang on to that, and Shield goes off into the grass slightly in protest, off into the dirt, back down to 7th place.
Yep, not ideal there for Shield, but that's, I mean, he's had worse incidents over the course of this race, is probably fair to say, but not able to hold on to that position. Great work for Crisp there, getting the up and under through turn 1, opens up the move down the inside for 3. It's a very, very common move indeed, but not the easiest move to actually successfully execute, as we'll ride on board with Richard Simner, because battle for P2 in GT4 Pro is definitely on.
It's Hausler up in front, and Richard Simner you're riding on board with in the Porsche. He's only got just over a minute to make this work, but that might be just enough time. Into Le Mans they go, and out onto the Ullman Straight. Both of them absolutely to perfection there, and especially Hausler, who's nailed that out onto the back straight. It is coming down, isn't it? What's going on for Nathan Moore here? Down to 1.3. Now he's on the last lap. Piers Pryor is flying at this moment in time. Final lap of the race is what we're on now. And Nathan Moore had a very short final pit stop, of course. Surely he's not slowing down now with fuel issues. He might just be being caught. We know how good Pryor is at the end of these stints.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, it was a very short stop, so if it is fuel issues, then that might be a bit worrying. It was a very slow lap on that last time, a 54.1 versus a 52 flat for Piers Pryor. That is a crazy difference of 2.1 seconds over the course of a single lap. That's worrying.
It is. Is there the traffic, though, to slow Moore down even further that Pryor will be able to benefit from? That back marker just gets out the way of one of them and not the other. Is that the moment where Moore seals his victory? Because it's only LMP3's in front of him now. It's 1.3 seconds, and maybe he will just cling on.
Looks like a bit of a panic there towards the very end. Of course, we have that battle for P2 and GT Pro that we also have to be concerned about here at the very end. But we'll watch these LMPs come through. Through Le Mans corner comes Nathan Moore. Gap down to one. Gap is 1.3 and extending here at the moment. No lifting and coasting here for Nathan Moore towards the end.
You just wonder how many more laps Pierce Pryor may be needed there, because Nathan Moore is going to just about get there. Into the final corner he goes, and out on towards the line. It's the World Sportscar Championship Round 1 victory for Nathan Moore, just about hanging on by 1.3 seconds over Piers Pryor, who gave him a lot to think about towards the end of those last couple of laps. In the end, the checkered flag came slightly too soon for the number 22. In GT4 Pro, it's Eric Grove who wins for Pure Sims without the backup of his teammate, of course, who had incidents earlier on in the race. Grove was able to drive at his pace to race victory by more than half a minute. Further back, it's going to be Silas Craig-Volik who takes the LMP3 AM victory. And in GT4 AM, it's going to be Josh Boot, by the looks of things, who will take the victory and actually will be scored one lap ahead of all of the others due to the way that they've been lapped over the course of the day. It's going to be the same story for Vrolik as well. In the LMP3 AM order, he's so far in front of the rest that actually he'll be scored one lap ahead of the rest. The only LMP3 AM driver to finish on the lead lap at the end of 90 minutes tonight.
Great stuff from everyone involved. Of course, GT Pro battle. Halfordson did hold off Richard Simner there at the very end. 0.133 seconds at the line there. Here's Slaz Krajvolik there, heading his way across the line to win in LMP3 AM. Well-deserved class win there. Here comes Josh Boot as well.
Number 6 Porsche out towards the line, and it's Josh Boot's name that will be at the top of the sheets by the end. GT4 AM victory for him. One of the last drivers indeed to cross the line as well. He'll be scored more than a lap ahead of the rest of the competition. Well, what a fantastic opening to the World Sports Car Championship. That's only round 1. Make sure you join us for the future round 6 to come, or 5 more in this 6-round championship. 90-minute races each time. And we've even got the iconic circuits like Le Mans, Spa, Daytona to come. It's Nathan Moore who wins the opener for Pure Sims Esports, in a great day for that team. Piers Pryor needing maybe 1 or 2 more laps to get that victory. Jürgen Frank fell away with that late incident. Thomas King and Corentin Guinez rounded out the top 5. Daniel Sesley was just over a minute back with Mathieu Gauthier-Taunton finishing 7th. Then it was John Williams who lost a couple of places towards the end there. Christoph Waits was the final driver on the lead lap with Stuart Bickley in 10th place. Ethan Critchley finished 17 laps down. Ben Bishop, Dennis Robin Wolf, Kurgli Konzabo and Nicholas Hyder all finishing many laps down after incidents. Silas Craig-Volik wins in LMP3 AM as Jus Baumeister finishes in 2nd place out of Mac McFarquhar. Then it's John Roberts and Andy Jones running up the top 5. Toby Ward was also 1 lap down. Baron Glover 2 laps down ahead of Anton Oman. Paul Joseph Clist and Andy Booth, who joined him 2 laps down. Couple more in the LMP3 AM who finished a few further laps down. Bruno Mello and Tony Draper did get to the end, but Ben Gregory did not after leading early on in that race. In GT4 Pro, no surprises to see Eric Grove at the front by more than 30 seconds. Hausler and Simnor fought for seconds right to the end. And it was close at the end as well. Same with Jaroslav Sebula and Jonathan Walker. Matthew Crisp holding off Andy Seal by 13 thousandths of a second towards the end as well. Rafael Drotas saw the battle with Guy Edwards and Jack Osborne rounding out the top 10. Then it's Paddy Faulkner, who was also on the lead lap with Paul Zanatachi. Christopher Smith finishing 1 lap down with that late incident, and Johnny Slater as well, who had an incident earlier on in the race. Finally, Josh Boot, wins in GT4 AM, and of Jack Wilkins and Evangelos Navatas in the 3rd place. Lee Berridge and Paul Smith round out the top 5. RaceSpot Zone inside the top 5. We love to see that. Matty Wild in 6th place ahead of Haflidi Johansson. Howard Hassan in 8th place ahead of Gary McFarlane, and Adam Locke 7 laps down, rounding out the top 10. Philip Bjork and Andy Gilmore finishing quite a few laps down by the end of that race. And what a race it was, Connery. Great opening to the World Sports Car Championship here at Sebring, and I know I often really slate this circuit for not being very good, mainly because of the racing that is provided around here, but also because of how it is to drive and all of these kind of things. But it truly provided today. What a great chase we saw towards the end of the race, and some of the battles and the length of time they went on for was quite phenomenal.
Yeah, it is fantastic to see, and it's a great start for this particular season. I certainly have not really that many complaints about how things went, because it's, we saw those amazing battles, those protected battles. We saw some crazy passes. We saw Pryor's swing around the outside at turn number 1, which, like I said, was already contender for pass of the season. It was that impressive, but yeah, I am certainly very happy, and Wilton Racing must be very happy with the way the first race has gone. Of course, we had a couple of issues with self spins and things like that, but that's just due to the nature of the racing. We have we had 54 cars out there on circuit. Someone's going to self spin at some point, so that's not really an issue. But I am definitely looking forward to the future races in this season, especially when it comes to Le Mans as well.
Absolutely, that will be coming up next week, of course. So we look forward to that greatly. Let's go forward to some interviews then, starting with Michael Hafliderson, who finished in 2nd place in the GT4 Pro standings today. Michael, welcome in. Good to have you with us in this opening round of the World Sports Car Championship here. It was a good round for you overall. 30 seconds down on the leader, Eric Grove, of course, but let's focus on that battle for second towards the end. You were holding on for it to Simnor, of course. Did you think you were going to manage it in those final minutes, because you were coming under a lot of pressure?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it was a crazy battle in the end. I was saving a bit too much of fuel. Me and my teammate thought we had underfueled by a few liters, but turned out we had got it just right, so I had about 2 laps extra fuel in the end, which was kind of unnecessary, which obviously allowed him to get a little bit too close for comfort, but managed to hold off in the end, even though we had a back marker almost coming into play. But I'm really happy about P2. I can't complain too much.
And in terms of the race generally, I've got to say I was expecting a few more incidents in terms of multi-class traffic and the narrowness of this circuit. The interaction between LMP3s and GT4s sometimes is a bit problematic. How did you find it as a driver of the slower class? How did you find the LMP3s going past you in how they did that, and how the race went generally in that respect?
Well, I think you must have missed half of the incidents then. I think it was all over the place almost.
Okay.
It was fine. I got a bit lucky, I would say, with traffic, almost always getting him on the straights, at least in the first and the second stint. So I didn't have too much of a problem with them. It's mainly in the end, when it started becoming like they come into the corners and stuff like that, I was a bit unlucky.
Yeah, I'm not saying there were no incidents. I just think it was a little bit quieter than I was expecting, maybe. But maybe I was expecting complete detonation. Anyway, we'll see how the season goes on moving forward to Le Mans. Michael, congratulations on 2nd place here tonight in GT4 Pro, and we look forward to seeing you at round 2.
Thank you so much. In a few weeks.
Thanks very much, Michael Havlinson there. 2nd place in the standings for GT4 Pro. It does seem that we got a lot of people who did finish in 2nd by the end of the day, because Piers Pryor is also here, and I'm hoping I can bring him in now as well. Piers, welcome in. Good to have you with us as well. You were 2nd at the end of the day. Couldn't quite get to Nathan Moore towards the end. How are you feeling after that one, after getting so close but yet so far?
Oh man, that was such a good race. Nathan, he just did it up in the last stint. I thought it was done, but then obviously you saw on the last lap he had a bit of traffic, and I was right there. But to be honest, I've worked really, really hard. I've put a lot of hours in for this. I haven't done a competitive championship on iRacing since we as GTA did the Euro Endurance Series maybe back in lockdown, so I've been literally chomping at the bit to do this, and I absolutely loved it. Looking forward to the next few rounds. Only 2 points behind in the championship, so hopefully I can take it to Nathan, but we'll see. But I really enjoyed it for the first round.
And we enjoyed watching you, I've got to say. I've got to talk a little bit about that overtake on Jürgen Frank in the final stint. It was round the outside of not only Frank himself, but also a lap car as well. But the thing that impressed us, of course, was the way that you were able to see what was happening, or it looked like you were able to see what was happening before it had happened in towards turn one. Just tell us a bit about what you were thinking at that moment in the race, because it was an important overtake to make at the time.
Yeah, it was definitely an important overtake. I mean, as you saw, Jürgen took a slightly different strategy with the fuel, which I think probably was slightly faster. I don't know if it was just luck with traffic, but fair play to him for getting that gap. And I think I had just about a tenth or so on Jürgen, and I was very, very nip and tuck with Nathan. But yeah, as you said, I saw it coming to a head, and I thought, he's going to be late up the inside there, and then he didn't go for it. And I thought, well, he can't go right now, and he's already slowed down. So I basically had no choice but to go outside, because if I'd have braked to that point, it would have been, I might have spun. So I basically just did the only thing I had the option to do, and on the exit I thought, oh no, am I going to get nipped here, am I going to get spun round? But no, luckily they both left me space, and that was I was really, really pushing to get past Jürgen at that point, because I knew it was an important point of the race to be ahead for the traffic, and then hopefully close the gap to Nathan. As I said, I thought I had a little bit of pace, but no, really, really good race. Jürgen was good racing at the start as well. The first couple of laps he was right behind me, and made it contact a couple of times, but literally just side to side. And I'm glad to have made it through the first round. It looked pretty sketchy towards the middle of the field. I was chatting in the Discord with a couple of my teammates, Matthew and Tom, and they were caught up in a bit of a melee. So I was glad to be on the front row, to be honest.
Yes, there was a lot going on a bit further back, certainly. Just a quick one, Piers, before we let you go.
Sure.
About Le Mans, 3 weeks away. How much are you going to be preparing for that, and how much are you looking forward to going around there?
Oh, I'm looking forward to the racing, because I think it's going to be less about traffic management and staying consistent, because Sebring is so hard to stay consistent, and the traffic can really do you over. But of course, Le Mans is pretty much the opposite circuit. High speed, low downforce, smooth, long straight. So the GT4s shouldn't be too much of an issue, unless you catch them in that last Ford chicane sector, because you could lose 2 or 3 seconds there. It'd be a bit sketchy. But yeah, it's all about the setup, I think, and getting in, playing a tactical game. I've not actually done the huge amount of racing at Le Mans. It's just unlike a lot of people on iRacing, because they've done a lot of 24s, but going to be working hard as I can to get the setup as good as I can. I haven't got a huge amount of experience with making setups from scratch. Clearly worked pretty well this time out, but we'll see how we go. I don't think I'm going to have quite as much time between now and the next round, because I'm going on holiday to see my sister-in-law in Italy for the next long weekend, and then I've got a few other bits and pieces. But I'll do what I can, and hopefully if I'm anywhere near as quick as we were at this time round, then I'll be very happy. And if not, then I'll just be hoping for some clean races, so I can hopefully be there at the end of the season.
Absolutely. Piers, congratulations on second place tonight, and we look forward to seeing you there at Le Mans.
Ewan, thank you so much. I'll have a look at the coverage later, but I'm looking forward to watching it back, because it was a good one.
Thanks very much. Piers Price there, second place in LMP3 and overall, indeed, at the end of the race tonight at Sebring. Well, what a round it was here. 90 minutes of racing to open the World Sportscar Championship here for Season 1 towards the end of 2023. It's not quite going to be the same relentless pace that the GT and Touring Car Championships come a cropper here on RaceSpotTV. It's going to be 3 weeks until we next go racing at Le Mans. Watkins Glen, Monza, Spa and Daytona still to come a little bit later, but we've now set the tone for this season, and what a tone it is. There we go. 12th of September, 8 p.m. UK time, as it will always be for these races. Le Mans, the next venue. What a place to go with these LMP3s and GT4s once again. Big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in here this evening. Hope you've enjoyed the show in the opening round of the World Sports Car Championship. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Connery Maddock, with Hugo Louise behind the cameras over the course of the evening. And until we see you in 3 weeks' time at the world famous Circuit de la Sarthe, it's goodbye for now.